guys, it's Julian. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make a hard melodic rave techno track, Klangkuenstler style. We're going to be talking not just about how to make the track, but also a little bit about arrangement with how to make the build up and then make it hit really hard when it drops. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything from this video is available at the top of the description on my Bandcamp for just $5. If you like what you heard in the intro, this is a great way to support me, plus get a really solid sample pack to work with and some resources so you can make better tracks in the future. Link is at the top of the description, and let's dive in, guys. Alright, so, right at the top here, we've got the kick, which is 2 layers. We have a nice hard kick here, which this is just one of my own, just a nice fat kick that I've layered here. You can see I like this one a lot because it's got a good to it, but it's also got the like boom in the low end. And I have spoken before with Klangkuenstler. I know he uses a few of my kicks here and there actually. He has a few of my sample packs, so this might be pretty close. And then we have the bass, which is made using the kick, so it's like it's a rumble bass, but there's just a twist on it. So essentially what we're doing here is, you can see we've just got the kick going. And then we add a bit of echo, which is obviously what's creating the rumble. Which is a little bit different from how I usually use it, because usually I would do delay actually, not echo, but I think echo, when you're doing this more like hard, aggressive style that's got a lot of texture to it, echo can be really good for that. And then we have this industrial rumble rack, which is actually something I've made a little bit ago. And you can hear it's doing that. So what this is it's just this multi-distortion thing essentially here. It's a bit complicated, but I'll break it down real quick. So what we got up here is we got just a little bit of saturation on this dry chain. And then we have this super crunchy chain with it. And this is the secret, because if you want to get this type of a bass, obviously that sounds really cool, and that's going to add a lot of movement to your track and texture. The problem is, as you can hear, it doesn't really have a lot of low end. Like, it has low end, but it's not as powerful as just that. And the truth about doing this kind of distortion is that, you're not really ever going to be able to get this level of distortion as well as the bass out of it. So, the workaround for that is we just have one chain, which is the distortion, and then one chain, which is just pretty dry. Now, this has a little bit of saturation on it, but obviously, and then you can see the distortion chain's a little bit quieter, but this allows us to get the best of both, because now we have the crunchy mids and highs, but we also have that fat low end that we need. So on the distortion chain, it's actually a little bit of delay here. Just doing 16th notes, so kind of adding a little bit more movement to the sound. Once you put that on top of another delay, this is how you really get kind of more life out of it. And you can even go and make this dotted 8th notes. And you can see it's just creating all this extra movement in there that you wouldn't get if you were just using the one echo. So we've got that. And then it's going into an amp. So here's without that. You can hear what that's doing. That's giving it that crunchy feel. And then we have multi-band distortion. And so all this is it's just the highs. You can see the highs are getting distorted, the mids are getting distorted on their own. And then we just keep the lows with nothing. But yes, this is a very effective method of doing this, because essentially, rather than just putting one distortion on the whole thing and kind of just getting it all kind of squashed into that distortion, this way you're controlling each of these independently, so they're all getting really big and full. And then when you put these layers together, that's how you get that really big fat bass sound. So we've got that. And then the last thing that's happening after that is just this auto pan, and this is just making that effect kind of bounce off of the kick a little bit more. And so we've got that rack going, and then after that we just low pass it a little. Not too much, because you want to let through a lot of the, like, grindy bass. You can even do more. But you also don't want to just have it, like, that in your track. Like, without any low passing, I think it's going to be a bit jarring. And then we just have the whole thing being sidechained to the kick. And then a utility, which is converting into mono. And then on the group here, all we have is just a bit of EQ, just cutting at 26 hertz. And this is because we can't hear anything lower than 20 hertz. Really, like 30 hertz, I think, is kind of the cutoff. But that stuff can still, like, frequencies that are lower than 20 hertz can still be in your mix. And even if you aren't hearing them, then at the end, when you're mastering, it's going to kind of squash the track too much, and it'll kind of get in the way of the headroom for the limiter and the compressor and all that kind of stuff. So let's just cut that out so that we have just what we want from the kick and just what we can hear. Then we have the hi-hat, which is just 2 layers, so we got this. And this, so kind of like a nice, like, dark 909 hi-hat, and then a punchy one. And then you can see when you put those together, you get the best. Then we have our percussion, which is made up of 3 layers. So we have this distorted 808 clap. And so what this is it's just an 808 clap. Super simple sound there, you know, from the 808 machine. We've got a little bit of reverb. You can see it's a bit shorter. And then we're actually doing a multi-band distortion on this one. And this allows you to create this big, kind of like fat clap sound. Because, you know, the clap on its own, without this, obviously it's a bit quiet, but, like, you know, it just feels too housey. It feels like it's too, like, just dry. So this is a way to kind of add some texture to it and make it almost into more of a snare. But also, obviously, it makes it a lot fatter, too, so it kind of fits better with the kick. And so this one, I've got the highs, the mids going through that, and the lows going through that. And I really like this because especially like in those mids, like if we just drop an overdrive on the whole thing and we don't do the multiband, so you don't really get that same like kind of nice while still having the really tight highs. This allows you to like keep the highs really tight. And yeah, then we just have a high pass filter. Then we have these Rave loops, which are, you know, the pretty classic sounds I've been talking about in a lot of these videos. So the key here is layering 2 of them. I wouldn't really do too much more than that because I think it will be devoting too much space in your track to just the percussion, if that makes any sense. Like, well, I think with just 2 of these you can make something really effective. So we have this one. Should I even throw a little bit of a high pass on that? So yeah, that's like a nice kind of aggressive crunching loop. You can see, as far as like the detail work goes on this, with the fades, you can see that on each of these, I actually just like kind of made it fade in a little. And the reason for this is because if I play you the original sample, hear how it has like a little click for the kick? If I reset the fades and I'll play it with the kick, see, that like was kind of getting in the way of the kick. So this is just like a simple way to keep it a bit cleaner. And then we have this one. And you'll hear like, you know, these kind of contrast each other, right? Like this one is more on the high end. And this one's more for that nice kind of like full mid-range. And both of them are really important. But you want to make sure, like, you know, when you're layering these, it's not just about getting 2 of them. It's about getting 2 of them that are going to complement each other and ultimately, you know, become one very full, solid thing like this. And then on the group of that, we just have a bit of echo. And this is actually for this little transition here. So this is something you hear in a lot of these tracks. And it makes like a really powerful sort of like build up there. So all it is we've taken these 2 loops and actually reversed them. There it is without the echo. And then there's a little snare there. And right when the snare hits, we have two automations on the echo. We have the dry wet and then the time. And so what's happening is this just comes on right then and the time goes down, so you get the tape stop. And yeah, I like doing the tape stop that way. I mean, it's nice because it's built into Ableton, you know. I feel like every time I download a tape stop plugin and try to use it, you know, like I make a project file with it, and then I try to open up that project file a week later, and then it never works. But this way, we're just working with the Ableton stuff. So it's a good way of doing that. But also, that's a really powerful transition, I think, for these tracks, to just drop everything out. And then it just smacks you in the face when it comes back down. Then we have the ride. It's a pretty standard techno 909 ride going on here. Just got it high pass a little bit, and I have a tiny bit of a high end boost. And then we have this bass. So as you can hear, obviously this is a bass, but we have a bass up top. So this is kind of how you want to think about this. It's like this bass is more for the mid range and really just for kind of filling out the track. But then the other one, you can hear when I play them side by side, the other one is actually like low end, right? But then also that like kind of grind from the distorted rumble, you can hear actually adds a lot to this bass. So it's kind of like all these layers fitting together and kind of creating something new. And that's how you want to think about it. Obviously, like, it would be easy to do this in a way that would be way too messy to have this and the rumble and the kick. But if you do it right, they can actually complement each other and make it more effective. So yeah, we've got this here. It's just, here are the notes. I'll show you first actually. So it's pretty straightforward. So we're in the key of C minor. So it's like root note, minor 7th, 4th, 6th, 3rd. You know, pretty simple stuff there. It's just like this kind of nice, like, epic sort of techno progression. Like, I think it's really powerful when you go up to the 7th, and then back down to the 4th, and you throw that 6th in there. It's perfect. So, then for the sound on this one, so you can see we have an arpeggiator, and I like doing this with an arpeggiator rather than just writing in the notes, because this way you can really easily just, like, if you want to try making it longer or shorter, you can do that. You can also automate that and have some fun with that too. And then for the sound, it's 2 layers. So we have this wavetable patch, which is just a saw wave with a bunch of unison. And then this analog patch, which is 2 saw waves an octave apart. And then when you put those together, you get like a really full unison bass because you have that big wide unison, but then you also have the stuff that's just going to be straight down the center. And they don't really clash with each other because even though they're both saw waves, it's 2 vastly different sounds. That like this on its own would be too thin. And same thing with this. So then we put them together, and it's super fat and super full. And then I just have a high pass filter, which is kind of working for 2 things here. So you can see we have, obviously, like, it's high passing it so that this is going to fit with the bass. Because that's really important. That's how you're going to make this fit with the rumble, is by just cutting out all the low end frequencies that the rumble is going to mostly fit into. But also there's a bit of automation in the build here because it kind of makes this disappear leading up to that. And then this is being sidechained to the kick. We have a low pass filter which brings it in the intro as well to just make it kind of build. And then you can ignore this echo here. Then we have the lead. So you can hear this is a super crunchy lead. So again, we're in the key of C minor. So you can see like root note, 6th, another root note, 5th, minor 7th. And you hear that kind of like call and response there where we go. You know, it's very, like, kind of fitting into itself. And it's because we're just walking down the scale. It's like you do the 6th, then the 5th, then the 5th, and it's like that little pattern. But then while that's happening, You've got so it's actually like very musical, and it's very much just kind of like following pretty basic scale stuff. You know, if you know the scale, you can do this. It's not hard to just walk down the scale. It's just a very masterful use of that style of writing, where it's like, if you do it right, you know, it's kind of like really good visual effects in a movie or something. It's like, you do it so well that it just draws the listener in, and they can't really tell why, but it just feels like the melody just feels right. And then over here, it's the same pattern. So this is actually only a 2-bar melody, but then over here, I just added this little low C. And yeah, and then that's just got this wavetable patch here. It's just a saw wave and a square wave. You can see the square wave and the saw wave are an octave up. And then we have a low pass filter, which is automating pretty much throughout here to give it a lot of movement. There's the envelope as well on the amp, as well as on the filter. You can see we've got that routed in the matrix there. And then I have the noise unison, which is like perfect for these kind of hard techno units. You know, it gives you that really chaotic, kind of crazy unison. And then I just have a bit of echo, some reverb as well. We're distorting it with a pedal, so here's without that. And then with it, obviously you can hear what that's doing. We have a compressor, side chaining this to the kick, and then just a low pass filter, which is just kind of like making this disappear a little bit. Toward the end there. And then the last step I'd probably do on this, just to show you guys, is I'd probably add a high pass filter, because you can hear a bit of low end in this. And now it won't clash with the other elements. And then we have this granulator pad. So this might sound a little bit odd on its own. I'll show you the sound really quick. It's very simple. So it's just using Ableton's granulator. If you don't know, it's a granular synth, meaning it plays back samples, but it plays back all different parts of the sample. Like you can see, it's jumping all around the sample. So when you put a vocal into that, you get this really cool glitchy pad. And it's a nice way to make something that isn't just another like unison saw wave. Because it would have been easy to go here and just get wavetable and just make like a big wavetable saw wave unison patch, you know? But this way, you're making something a little bit more interesting that's going to just fit into the track better. Because we already have that unison with the lead. So if we go and make this like a big saw pad, it's going to clash with that. But then the key to this one is it's actually kind of like an extension of what the bass is playing. So what's happening here is the way I wrote this is I wrote the bass line, and then I brought that into this MIDI file, and then these are all just chords that are going to work really well on top of that. So for example here, like the bass is playing C, so then this is playing G, and G an octave up. So really, it's just playing the fifth there. But because it's playing it on its own, and then the bass line is playing the bass line on its own, you can hear it creates a very powerful progression. And I really like this technique, one, because it kind of spreads it out and makes it a little bit more space between the different elements in the chord progression. But also, I think that just overall, like, it's just a really nice way to make something very interesting in your track. And it's not that hard to do because you're kind of just writing like one big chord progression and then spreading it across different things. And yeah, and then we just have a bit of chorus, a bit of reverb on that. It's being sidechained to the kick. I have a high pass and then just a low pass to bring it in. And you can see that just kind of is like going down. So while that's going down, we have our lead going up. And same thing with the bass. So it's like all these different like automations are kind of working together. Like the way this one's going up while this one's going down. To kind of like make different things kind of come in and out of the track. And I think that's a really nice way to structure it. Because it's going to make it not just feel like you just drag the same automation onto everything. But it's really going to feel like each element is telling its own story. And then the last element that we have down here is this little counter melody. So this is just a really simple melody in the key of C minor. And the idea behind this one is, you know, it's just going to kind of like add a little bit of a counter to the main melody. But also, when you're arranging your track, you know, like you can have a part where it's just like the bass line and the lead. And then when you get tired of that, then you can switch it out and have like the pad and this counter melody. So that's kind of the idea here. It's like this is like just another essentially like color to paint with here. And the notes are really simple. Like I said, it's in C minor, but if you notice, it's only 3 notes. It's just C, G, and G sharp. So the root note, 5th, 6th, and then just another C down here. So actually, very straightforward in that regard, but it just creates something nice and repetitive over top of everything. And this sound is made using Operator. It's actually an FM sound made with 3 different sine waves here. You can see I've got this plucky envelope on the second one. They're also detuned a little bit, and the first one is an octave up. And then we just have a low-pass filter with an envelope, a bit of echo, reverb, some drum bus, and the low-pass filter, which just makes it go down a little bit in that intro. And the other thing about all these things low passing down, I'm just adding a little high pass here, but the other thing about all these things kind of like disappearing with the low pass here is it's kind of like you're making it really quiet and quiet and quiet, and then you go boom with this massive drop. So like that can be really powerful just from like because of the fact that like it's a little bit quieter at the point right here. And then it just erupts. And that's really like how you want to think about it. You know, it's not just about, oh yeah, I used this cool low pass filter plugin on this synth. But it's about actually like using these, like these are just the tools. This is just the paintbrush, you know what I mean? Like to kind of paint the picture a little bit better. So yeah, and then the last thing I put on there is just a high pass filter. Cut out the lows. Yeah, so that was going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to let me know what you think of this video in the comments, and like this video as well as subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, literally every single thing that you just saw in this video is available right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp for just $5. This really helps support me. Plus, you get a really awesome template to go and build as many tracks as you want out of. You know, you can just use this as your template and make a whole EP or a whole album of tracks out of this. So I think it's a really useful resource. Plus, it really helps keep me going. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow.